Hello, MGTOW. Hello, men. This is Howard Dare. Thanks for stopping by. So, I want to talk about something known as the loss of the future dimension, because I believe that this is exactly what has happened to men, to our nation, and in fact, to the world. Let me describe to you how I think this happened with me, and I think that'll offer you some insight as to how, it happens with other people and even yourself. So, while I was growing up, my mother was an alcoholic, okay? And my father is a good, hardworking man, but he would get angry. He would lose his temper. He would come home and he would find out that his wife had written a bunch of bad checks and that he couldn't get the rent paid. So there was some stress and some strife and some arguments, how things were. But he himself was not an alcoholic or an addict or anything like that. Now, growing up, half of the time, I wasn't getting any sort of childhood care. Like my mother wasn't washing my clothes or making me dinner or breakfast or helping me with my homework or tending my wounds or anything like that. Some of the times she would, maybe like half of the week, right? So when I'm going to school as a kid, I'm the one who's washing my clothes. And of course, I didn't even figure this one out until about, 9 or 10 years old. Before that, it was just whatever. As my mother was an alcoholic, when I would come home from school or whatever, try to bring a friend over, there was a strong possibility that she was going to be falling down drunk on the floor screaming obscenities. So, no, I wasn't bringing home any friends. My plan, usually when I got home, I would come home and I would be able to tell immediately what kind of state my mother was in. And if she was drunk and out of it, my plan, even at 7, 8 years old, was to steal a couple of quarters from her purse and to go up to the liquor store and to buy myself a candy bar and, a soda, right? And then to stay out of the house for as long as possible. So, so I'm 8 years old and I'm waiting until dinner time to come home. And I'm not even really, I'm not consciously thinking of it. I'm just doing it because, yeah, I know it's trouble. And in this setting, there's no birthday parties. There's no plans. There's no trips. Holidays are questionable. The only thing that I'm trying to do as a child is to stay alive, to keep myself alive, to feed myself to the very next day. There is no future. There is just the present moment. And if I'm smart, I'll avoid the present moment. So probably all of us experience this, as children. Like I was talking with a psychologist once, and I was talking about the hard times in my childhood. And I said to him, I guess everybody has a hard time in childhood. And he looked at me like I was an idiot. And he said, of course, everybody has a hard time in childhood. Everybody is traumatized. Everybody has to deal with these types of problems. But what I'm talking about are goal-oriented people, the people that you know in life, perhaps you're one of them, okay, that get things done, that have big plans, that have mortgages, that can take out loans, that can oversee a long-term project through difficulties over time with multiple people. See, this is building the future, right? And there's an element of faith taking place here. And there's an expectation of cooperation. A child raised by drug addict parents that are, that are short on income, that are just getting by day to day, week to week, month to month. Do you really think that child is going to do their homework? Consider this, with this level of neglect, and I'm suggesting that we all experience it to a degree, to a greater or lesser degree, what would be the proper action, the proper mindset for that child to take? Because understand that there is no positive motivation, okay? There's only negative motivation. In other words, if you don't go to school and get good grades, you're going to get punished. We're going to take your bike away. We're going to ground you. We're going to beat you, okay? If you don't do what we say, we're going to hurt you. That's the deal. That's the offer. Not, We're going to help you. We're going to build a future. We're going to find out your positive qualities. We're going to build on those. We're going to complement those. We're going to see your negative qualities. We're going to try to mitigate those. We're going to try to give you some insight as to how those are actually getting in your way. That's not what they're doing. This is the normal healthy process that you need to be doing with yourself and that you need to be doing with the people that you're trying to bring along and coach them up to a new level. But that's not what's done with the children. That's not what was done with me at all. I was told if I didn't go to school, do as I was told, and get good grades, that I would be punished. And I was. So what kind of an attitude? So they're not washing my clothes. They're not giving me food. They're not even tending my wounds. Okay? They're not even taking me to the hospital if I need to be. And this is half of the time. This is not 100% of the time, because who could survive? This is half of the time. So when they say to me, you do this or else, the only way for me to hold on to any human dignity, to any human pride, to any self-worth, to any self-agency is to say to them, fuck you. I'm not doing it. Anything you tell me to do, I might give the appearance of doing it because I don't want to get hurt and punished, but I'm not going to do it. As a matter of fact, for me to do that would to actually harm myself. So, I've got an adult telling me, we're doing this to you for your own good. And if you don't do what we say, we're going to punish you. Believe me, this hurts me more than it hurts you. It's like, no, I don't think so. I really don't think so. So, child in this situation, person in this situation, they don't have long-term goals. They don't have long-term plans. All they want to do is not be harmed, not be hurt in the moment, and to get by in the present to the future where there is a possibility that this circumstance is no longer in place. That's all they can do. So does this give you a little insight as to why it's so hard to get up in the morning with goals and to have a positive attitude about them, right? How is the child supposed to get up and have a positive attitude about going to school when their clothes are ratty and filthy and they will be mocked and belittled, where their teachers will not respect them? And when they come home to chaos, into madness, into arguments, into fights. And the only thing that they want to do, and they're not going to get any care, they're not going to get food, they're not going to get reinforcement, they're not going to get positive reinforcement. They're only going to be punished. And they're not going to be punished with the idea of, we're trying to mitigate, this person's negative qualities and give them some insight here. No, they're just being punished. So they learn to avoid. They learn to resent. Okay, so the people wake up in the morning, they've got no energy. They've got no enthusiasm. They've got no confidence for the future. From a very many, many years ago, I was able to see that the problem wasn't that we didn't have the resources, that we didn't have the intelligence, that we didn't have the human will. The problem is that we're not motivated. Like, we all know what to do in life to have a good life, but we don't do it, right? So, from a helicopter view, got a nation, maybe 100 million men, and 80 million of them, they don't feel like doing anything. And it's the right choice, given the circumstances. Because this circumstance that I described as in childhood, this is what happens in adulthood as well. Maybe you're thinking about, my parents or people's parents, and you're thinking, wow, those were terrible people. They shouldn't have done that. They didn't know any better. That's exactly what had been done with them, okay? So I described this situation, about my mother. My mother had it 10 times worse. She was an orphan, right? Nobody looked after her. Nobody took care of her. And if she didn't work and get things done, she didn't even get to be an orphan. You see what I mean? And this was like South Carolina, right? The main thing that these people did in this circumstance was to drink moonshine. That's what they did. So it's not even like, wow, if these bad people would just stop being bad people and start being good people, we could build a good future. It's like, no, that's not what's going on at all. This is like the color of your paint in a painting, right? Like, you don't have certain colors, and they are only so bright. And the coin of the realm, the thing that we're exchanging, is resentment, bitterness, anger, defiance. And it's correct. That's what you're supposed to do when you are being abused and neglected. You're supposed to say no. And this is the loss of the future dimension. And it's not just for children. It's for people going to work and dealing with a manager. It's not just for work. It's for our politics. This is a politician who maybe tries to have a secure border. or a fair tax code, or a functioning health system, or a functioning educational system, okay? These are reasonable long-term goals. These are plans for the future, for functionality. I don't care. I don't care about people's backgrounds or cultures or ethnicity. I care about the function of the things that we're building. If they work, I'm really happy, okay? No matter who's there. And if they don't work, I'm unhappy, no matter who's there. Functionality, workability is the calling card. That's what we're looking for. But we can't have that. Anybody in any given moment can pitch such a fit, can cause so much chaos that the future gets put on hold. And we have to deal with the circumstances of the present. The present is unfair. You're dealing with a gynocentric, feminized, woke mind person who lives on the idea of entitlement and finding fault with other people. Okay, they don't just not have long-term goals themselves. They don't want anybody else to have long-term goals. Okay, it's upsetting, isn't it? Right? This is the reason why people wake up with no energy. Well, this is one of the reasons why they wake up with no energy. And they say to themselves, if I can just get through the day, if I can just get my next paycheck, and then if I can just acquire the things that I need to survive and the things that I need to feel halfway decent about this miserable, threatening existence. So it's not a glorious future that we're building. No, it's a present where we just don't want to get hurt. And this is the loss of the future dimension. And you see how easy it is to do. Like if you go into work and you've got a business meeting and you want to talk about, increased productivity, but one person wants to say that they feel they're being, sexually mistreated in the workplace and they're really upset about it. Well, that's your new priority, isn't it? And you can understand how such a person could make it so that you are always dealing with the small, little problems of the moment. It's like a kid, saying, if I don't get the candy bar I want, I'm going to lay down on the ground and cry. I actually did that once. It was just a couple weeks ago. No, I must have been about, 4 or 5 years old. I'm in the liquor store with my mother. Gee, I wonder what she's getting. And I want a candy bar, like a Snickers, right? But there's not enough money. I've walked around the store and looked at the magazines. I'm only, 6 or 7 years old, maybe just 5. I'm not getting the candy bar. And as I recall, I've got a pretty good memory. I had actually decided that this might actually be the means by which I could, achieve the candy bar. So I go down and, I start my whining and pounding of the ground. And they're essentially just ignoring me. And after about 20, 30 seconds, I'm like, this isn't working. And I'm getting dirty. And it's kind of cold down here on the floor, right? Like there's nothing going on down here. So, I just picked myself up, brushed myself off, and went back to looking at the magazines. But this idea, that the present and the turmoil and the emotions and the chaos of just the present moment, what I want is paramount. It is, the deciding factor, right? So there can be no trip to Disneyland, there can be no going out. Now the truth is I didn't have any of those things anyway, like my mother could take me out to lunch, 10 miles from home and then get so drunk that she couldn't drive and that I got to walk home, or drop me off at school and just leave me there, like I'm standing there waiting, to get picked up from school. This is in my later days, 9 or 10, no, a little older. And nothing, nobody, not late, just nothing. How do you plan for a future? How do you say tomorrow I'm going to do this? I'm going to be class valedictorian. How do you do it? You're not even getting home tonight. And if you are, you're getting punished for something that's largely not even your fault. So this is how the future dimension is taken away. This is one of the ways the future dimension is taken away from us. A man's wife leaves him 10 years ago. And, it's hard, man. She runs him through the ringer. But 10 years have passed and he is still stuck in, that memory. You get unjustly arrested and falsely prosecuted. And then after many, many years, you get through it. It's resolved. Do you move on and go on like it didn't happen? So this thing that happens, it affects our internal dialogue, the story of ourselves. Now, it's really important, okay? It's a story. It's this very complex, interwoven fabric of who and what we are. And we carry it with us in our memories. And the traumatic experiences, maybe you got hurt, maybe, you suffered a severe loss. These memories, they're encoded much more strongly. And they're encoded in such a way that when we think about them, we actually relive them. We actually re-experience the whole thing, okay? This is why you've got so many people talking about their feelings. Okay, this is why you get up in front of you're at a group of 500 business people, and somebody gets up there and starts talking about their mother, or you listen to a video. This idea that the emotion that the person experienced, the resentment, the anger, it wasn't fair. Okay, they relive it. They can't get past it. They're stuck in the past. So now they don't even have a present, okay? And they certainly don't have a future. So if you're trying to go around and be a decent citizen and build a sustainable future, and you're surrounded by people who want to find fault with you and say that, the clothes you wear are cultural appropriation, or that your use of terms like he and she are very offensive to them, and you've got to watch yourself or you're going to get punished. If that's the environment that you exist in, what is it that you want? What is it that you're trying to do? You're not trying to build a glorious future. You're trying to not get hurt in the moment. You're trying to avoid the bullshit. There is no future. There is I just got to deal with this situation and get out of this situation. And now if you tell me that I have to go around to all of the bathrooms and take off the tags that say man or woman and put up unisex on all of them, for me to do that, I'm going to feel like a dog. I'm going to feel less than human. I am going to feel that my sense of independence was taken away from me. I am going to feel resentment, okay? Maybe I'll do it, but I'll resent doing it. So what if you start to resent everything in your life? So this is what I'm talking about. And this is what I believe has happened to men by the entitled gynocentric behavior of the women. And I would have you further understand that while the individual women and metrosexual men are individually indulging in this, and you're thinking to yourself, this is madness, there is a larger, higher abstracted helicopter view of what's going on here. And it is the people driving these types of agendas. And to them, this is a Ponzi scheme. This is a pyramid scheme, all right? They really don't care about these values. They care about the fact that this emotionally hooks a huge percentage of their population, and that they can then marshal those resources and focus those resources, be it through donations, be it through public demonstrations, be it through talking heads on, news media. They're being played to build a future that is not theirs, that is not even designed to be a viable future, but it is designed to extract the most resources from the present. So that's the model that you have going on around you. Even the people that you think of as in charge, school administrators, politicians, judges, the legal system, they're not building the future, they're milking the present, and they're finding fault and blaming the people just as a leverage to continue their entitlement and their moral superiority. And this last election had the American people, by a majority, say, no, this is a bunch of bullshit. You're playing us. We're not going to give up the future because you, in the present, think that this is some sort of unkindness. Okay? We're going to have a border. Okay? I'm going to put a lock on my front door. I'm going to put a fence around my property. I'm going to pick my friends and loved ones very carefully. Unconditional love. So your intimate companion, notice I didn't even say woman, so sad. And some, who's maybe got your back, who's, your partner doing half of the work, coming through when you need it, and you're coming through for them, okay? And a complete stranger who wants your resources and doesn't care about you one single bit, are these two people equal? Here's your best friend, okay, who would give up anything for you. They don't want to die, but short of that, there's nothing that they won't give, okay? And a complete stranger who thinks you're a jackass, who actually derives pleasure and, ego gratification by belittling you and finding fault with you. Oh, you're going to love these two people the same. Oh, yeah, sure you are, okay? And we're all going to be treated equal. And that means that the person who works and studies hard and is a good friend and does a good job and does good work, even when they, don't have to, even when you're not going to punish them, and the person who's the exact opposite, they're the exact same, but they're not. So this is, just one of the ways that you can destroy the future. And this is what's happened to us. And so the people get up without any motivation. All they want to do is get by, not be hurt. All they want to do is assuage some of their pain. This is what we are reduced to. This is what we have lost. So how do we get it back, right? We exist in multiple times. That's crazy, right? It's like a science fiction movie. And our ability to balance the past, the present, and the future determines, to a large degree, how we're doing. The trauma of the past experiences, they trigger powerful emotions in the present, okay? The hypothalamus, the part of the brain that actually says, what time it is, like, oh, this happened in the past and this happened in the, this might happen in the future, through trauma becomes confused. That's right, it happened 10 years ago. That's right, it happened 5 years ago. But it was so bad that you're still feeling the effects today, that the fear of what happened still, is straight in your, it's not just in your memories, it's chemically encoded. It's real. In other words, when the person starts to experience this past trauma through reliving it, we could have an MRI machine on them, and you would see that the parts of the brain that experienced, this traumatic event, they're still firing. It's real. So you're going into work. You want to maybe, make some good sales. You've got some things planned out and set up. But no, the other people in the office, no, they want to talk about pronouns. They want to talk about the temperature controls. This is really what the left and the media does. You know what I mean? It's a storm in a teacup. They cause so many considerations in the present moment that the future becomes just unworkable. You know what I mean? Like something like passing a continuing resolution to keep the government operating. Okay, so you've got some idea as to what I'm talking about here. And, I'm thinking now I'm going to tell you how to fix it, right? I don't know how to fix it. I think, a little understanding about what happens with us and why we lose our motivation, why we lose our faith in the future, which is perfectly understandable. I think once we have a little bit of insight there, that we can start to mitigate, some of the problems that this causes. Like, we can have an incredible future, a bright, glorious, prosperous, healthy, happy future for all good people, who work for it and earn it and are worthy of it. Worthy isn't the right word. You know what I mean? I think you do. We can do that. Now, will the crazy people try to pull the rug out from under us? Absolutely. This is why you choose your friends carefully. This is why you choose your associates carefully. Do you know that if you sit down and work near, like within 25 feet of a productive person, that the quality of your work goes up about 15%? And did you know that if you sit down within 25 feet of an unproductive person, your productivity drops by 30%? Yep, it's true. Amazing, isn't it? But it's not. So if you've got good parents who are looking after your future and taking care of your present, okay, you've probably got a good attitude and you are probably building towards a prosperous future. And if you have parents that are drunk, that are broke, that exist in chaos within their own urges, what kind of a future will that child build? In many instances, my parents didn't even treat my wounds, okay? I would come home with a serious injury. They didn't care. As a matter of fact, to tell them, I would get punished. So you know what I did? As like an 8 and 9-year-old, I treated my own wounds. I brushed them with alcohol and I bandaged them up. And do you know what happened then? What happened then was I left it alone. And it became infected, right? And I had to tear those bandages off. Over, so really painful stuff. Okay, so hopefully that'll make you feel real sorry for me, right? Because I'm going to ask you now to please like, share, comment, subscribe, donate. Let us have a very MGTOW Christmas, okay? So support the Howard Dare channel, please. Find my Cash App donation link, send a few dollars Howard Dare's way so that he can continue to repair himself and overcome these difficulties that we all suffer and struggle through. But by my sharing of this, giving insight to the other men, because my experience is not unique. You know what I mean? I think some of you who know me, who've listened to my content for a long time, you know that I am basically an Ayn Rand objectivist, okay? And I believe that the most important thing for an individual is their internal self-narrative, okay? And for me, I am a hero, okay? I have overcome these terrible circumstances and odds and, the situation. And I am here, and I am strong, and I am healthy. And this is proof that I have what it takes to get it done. And this is proof that I have what it takes to move it into the future, okay? That's my mindset. And that's what I believe the mindset needs to be for everybody, for most people, okay? 5 years ago, I get falsely arrested, thrown in jail for something I didn't do, okay? 5, 6 years later, oh, yeah, that's right. Turns out, okay, he didn't do it. We're sorry, right? So now it's very hard for me to hold on to my heroic superhero self-narrative, which I believe is completely valid and completely true for all of us, okay? But this traumatic experience says to me, no. At any given moment, the entire rug, the entire base, foundation of my existence can and will be taken away from me. So it's very hard to plan for the future. Lastly, let me give you some advice, okay? Can and will be used against you, all right? When they say that to you, when they say you have the right to remain silent, because anything you say can and will be used against you, what you need to understand is and will be used against you, okay? So you think that if you say you're innocent and you offer proof of your innocence, that will count in your favor, but it won't. Everything you say will be used against you because they don't care about the truth. They don't care about what really happened. It's their job to prosecute crime. So if they have what appears to be a case against you and they know that you are not guilty, they don't care. And if you claim your innocence, they will use that against you. They will not say this is an honest person who's trying to prove their innocence. They will say this is a dishonest person who is trying to prove their innocence. It will be used against you. And yes, even your silence will be used against you. Oh, they're not allowed to do that. That doesn't, all of your constitutional rights, when it comes down to where the rubber meets the road, it's lip service, okay? They don't actually respect and enforce your constitutional rights. What they do is they find end arounds on them, okay? So that on the surface it appears, that they are respecting these constitutional rights. But they have 10 ways, 20 ways, countless number of ways to undercut and undermine those rights. And they do. Perhaps they feel justified, like, oh, we're doing this, against crime. But they don't care, okay? So can and will be used against you. It's like that word can makes it sound like it's conditional. It'll all be used against you. So be very careful, There's nothing wrong with saying I'm not going to say anything until I speak to a lawyer. As a matter of fact, that might actually be the most respectable thing to say. So I'm going to leave it at that for now. Have a very MGTOW Christmas, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Thank you, MGTOW.